Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining. Today is a very special stream for us, or for me, because we have our final Golden Ticket Award. So last one of a very nice series, and finally we got the magazine freshly from the printing press. So a lot of things to celebrate, and we have a very nice golden ticket to discuss today. So we have Kevin Esherick here today from New York. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much
Hey,
for submitting. Thanks for submitting your work, Kevin. And we're going to talk about this in a minute. Our jury has created the magazine out of all those submissions, and we had as a kind of a special feature. We had something that we had a golden ticket for every jury member. So each jury member could award one golden ticket to one artwork. And we have David here from our jury. We're very honored to have you here, David. Thank you very much.
thank you.
And you selected Kevin's work for your golden ticket. And I think we can start with you, David. I think we don't have to introduce you to our viewers. I think everyone knows you as the
Well, maybe.
probably most well-known graphic designer. I'm pretty sure about that. But let's talk a bit about Kevin's work and why you chose it and how you felt this process.
Yeah, well, it was really interesting to see all the work and the variety of what was sent. And, some of it was maybe expected, kind of what we've come to think of AI art. And then others, there were a few that were like, whoa, that's kind of out of, well, I hate to say left field, but maybe not as expected. And that for me is where Kevin's work was so strong and unexpected and human. And I really gravitated towards that. And so it became, I think, more about the message than necessarily just the technology that created it. And there's some combination, which is usually pretty effective. And I like things unexpected. I like out of the norm. And for me, in this competition, and what all I saw, and again, there was a lot of great work, and it was hard to narrow it down. And I came down to two for the golden, and then it became pretty clear as the more I looked into it. And so yeah, that's pretty general, but I think it's a real early stages of this whole AI art thing in a way, even though it's been a while now. But and so I was also kind of curious about trends and things like that in the work. But yeah, I'd like to hear a little more from Kevin, I guess, on the starting point and how he uh, just how he approached it. Really, it's a very personal piece, and
Mhm.
is why it was so strong. And I think we need to keep that perspective in mind going forward, or this art, or any art for that matter. The more personal the work is, the better it's going to be. And I think Kevin's submission and this kind of an event was a great example. Maybe not, like I say, expected, but let's hear from Kevin. I don't know if that's enough to kind of get you started.
Yeah, I mean, for people who are unacquainted with the work, which is probably just about everyone on the stream, I'm happy to fill in some background on that.
Are we able to show it, by the way, or?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Sorry, I
Well,
almost
yeah,
forgot.
and that's up to you, Kevin, if you want to see the work before you talk about it, or vice versa.
Yeah, no, we can leave it up. People don't need to see my face. That's irrelevant. Um,
Also,
so yeah, this piece is from a collection called "I'm With You." This one in particular is called "Especially in Michigan." Um, in parentheses, upstate. The collection as a whole, there's we can go back to a little over a year ago and talk about where it started technically. I guess for people to hear from the start, I'll just say the kind of bare bones of what this collection is. It is a series of works that depict my older brother who passed away when I was 20. They depict him using AI. I trained an AI model on images, old images of him that I gathered together, and wanted to ask the question, like, what would life look like if he were still here? And the idea for that had come to me, as David mentioned, he likes things that are kind of unexpected, and he talked about liking things that work with and explore the technology, but which also like have strong content and strong narrative, and that like consummation of those things is really critical to me. I like things that are novel, but I tend to lose some interest in them if they're novel for novelty's sake. I want to see things that that are able to explore new technologies, but still like mean something human, and apply back to us. And yeah, that's kind of the bar I hold myself to in my work, is both like trying to be at the cutting edge of what's going on, with at the forefront of the art world or the technology world, which are two major interests of mine, but then also like making it actually matter to people. And so I was thinking like how AI can be used as this thing that allows us to like revive the past or imagine alternative futures. And the most salient of those futures to me, like the biggest question in my head is what if my brother was still around? That's the most dramatic, like forking path in my life. And so at first the idea involved actual just like photographic depictions of him, but I think the uncanny nature of AI means that any like attempt to accurately recreate him with AI images is always going to come up a little bit short, and there will always be something like eerily off, where the corners of his mouth don't like turn in the right way as he smiles, or his eyes are off, or something like that. And the thought of just a high resolution depiction that wasn't actually him felt weird to me. So this idea was sort of sitting there in my head around April, and then going back to last fall, I had been developing this AI image technique that I call single step diffusion. And I had used this for my collection in utero, which came out in June, which Mike and I actually met at my show for that in Berlin. And then I had no idea that Mike was involved with this magazine until earlier this morning. So it's fun to come full circle on that. But so I had been developing this technique over the course of a month, and it had manifested in this collection that we had shown in Berlin with Annika Meyer and Expanded Art, which was really wonderful, and I'm grateful for. And yeah, we had a solo show out there in Berlin. And the technique involved super high level overview of how AI image models work. Generally, like the current best models are what are called diffusion models, and they work by taking, I'm going to simplify it even further. Basically, they take a series of processing steps to produce an image. And they're usually made to work within those parameters. But if you download the models onto your computer and explore them from a more technical perspective, you can tweak things and pull knobs and levers that make them do different things that they aren't really designed to do. And so I asked, like, what happens if you take those processing steps down to the minimum possible? You get the most raw image that an AI model is capable of producing. And so for In Utero, that entire collection was a series of images that were produced using just a single, what's called diffusion step, with the idea being that like this is kind of a peek into the mind of an AI image model. We're looking at what its cognitive process is like as it tries to like form these images. And for me, that's like a metaphorical, bordering on semi-literal look into like what it is like for like AI to be opening up its eyes to our world and coming into resolution. So that technique had developed, and then it kind of collided with this idea for I'm With You, where I was like, oh, this is like a perfect way to step back from that uncanny full resolution depiction of my brother that I feel like has like an air of trespassing to it, and instead like return to this kind of nostalgic haze where like the imprint of him is there, and it can feel like him, and we leave like part of the work up to our imaginations, and we can fill in like who we know him to be. But because I trained this model on images of him, I'm still able to capture like true like elements of his essence, and that was my biggest goal for this collection. As much as I want everyone, you know, whoever sees the work to love it, like what really mattered to me was the people who knew him and loved him to be able to see these images and like recognize that glimmer of him in them. And so I guess just to cap that off, the collection is titled I'm With You. One, because music was like a very like strongly shared experience for us. Like he loved music and played music and just like lived life largely through music, and imparted that love onto me. And so it was a shared way of processing the world for us. And the Red Hot Chili Peppers were his favorite band. And the last album of theirs that came out and that we were able to enjoy together while he was still alive was called I'm With You. And so that title, plus just the obvious like idea of him still being with me, with us in spirit, like his imprint still like making itself known on our lives, felt really perfect to me. It was also part of a group show called In Spirit. And yeah, so each work in the collection is titled after a song that either he loved, we loved together, or if it came out after he passed away, like a song that I felt he would have loved. And so the titles are kind of like soundtracks to these pieces and songs that I like imagine being the score to these moments together. So Especially in Michigan is a Chili Peppers track that we both love off their album Stadium Arcadium, which is the one that really like put me onto them when I was young. And yeah, it's an envisioning of him outdoors, upstate somewhere, New York or Michigan or something like that, being in nature, which is a place he loved to be. So yeah, I think that's my spiel on the whole thing.
Yeah, and I think this deep story is also what. Thank you so much, first of all, for sharing this with us. I mean, it's definitely something very, very personal. And David, I think this deep story is what makes this art so interesting, right? I think this is what partly caught your interest in the artwork, or how could you explain that?
Yeah, well, it did its first job, which is just to intrigue and make me want to know more, and not spell out everything so literal, like he mentioned, that you kind of lose interest right away. It's like, whoa, something's going on here, and this is not simply somebody defocusing something. There's more that went into this, and I think that's a huge part of what we do. And there's places where it certainly doesn't always need to be so personal, but the trick is to put some of yourself into everything you do. I mean, nobody can copy that. Nobody can buy that software, and different levels of how much you can do that depending what you're working on. But and so this is pretty wide open for this competition, and I'm 100% convinced that's why it works, because it's deeply personal, and he's got obviously the skills and training, the way you talked about the program he set up. So yeah, I'm just curious, it's a series, how did you select this particular one over some of the others? I'm assuming they were somewhat similar, or maybe the same background, or
Yeah.
maybe not. I don't know.
I think
No,
this
there's a
is
whole
the
range of them.
result.
Okay. I was about to
Wow.
go grab the one that I kept for myself. I have here in my home. There's a whole range of aesthetics to them.
Okay.
And this one in particular, um, I felt it shows one, partially just like super simplistically, like it's got color to it. A good number of them are like black and white or in kind of like a sepia tone. Um, I thought that the color would just make it more engaging right off the bat for a viewer who's not acquainted with the work and who's on this jury. It was one of my favorite pieces. It was one of the first that I knew was going to make it into the final collection, because I made somewhere on the order of 100,000 images for this.
How many?
100,000.
100,000. I wasn't positive you said thousand, but I like that. I always
those
present a lot of
that being said,
ideas.
these weren't all like that wasn't 100,000 like fully finished images,
Right.
because unlike the in utero collection where it literally was just that single step technique and I just took whatever the model put out and I left it at that, this involved a little more crafting and cultivating to make sure like his imprint really shone through. So that was like 100,000 like first draft bare bones images, and then I did a lot more work on a very small fractional subset of those. But yeah, it was colorful. It felt like it had a distinct impression to it, and like some of them, it's like almost hard to see a person there for a moment or something like that. This one, like I felt like you can see it. You can see this human there. You can identify them, and to connect with it doesn't require that like you knew him, I think. And yeah, to be honest, it was pretty tough picking which one was going to go. I was just looking back over them before this interview, and I hadn't in probably a month or so, and I was like, I love these all so much. I was kind of surprised how
well, that's a really good sign if you can go back to older work and still feel
good.
That's
no, that was nice. But yeah, that's why that one.
What did maybe you could clarify just for me a little bit? How could this how could it have not? What am I trying to say here? If it was pre-AI, what would you have done to get something similar, or could you?
Yeah, I don't really think I could have, or I mean, if I had, like I can't imagine anything digital doing that in a meaningful way. Like maybe through some like analog photography techniques that would like engage with this sort of effect, or like through painting or something like that. Like creating impressionistic images in paint or something. But really like this, the technology like flowed so well with the concept and the subject matter that for me, like this is something totally unique to working with AI. Like that it's a technology that allows me to like take fragments of the past and like recreate this alternative present. Like that's AI. Like I use these images of him from 10 years ago, and that was able to embed his the imprint of his image into this model, like it just doesn't really exist anywhere else. And for that to like kind of mirror the like imprinting of his memory on my mind, yeah, it just all felt like so natural and native to the medium. That I don't think something this strong on this subject matter really could have existed in another medium. And yeah,
Okay.
I'm grateful to the medium, honestly.
Interesting. Yeah, well, that's just such a great example how it can stay human, and the humanity behind it, and the personal feelings, obviously, that went into that. That's, I think, a really encouraging sign for the whole, and again, there's places where that's not appropriate, or you want a whole different thing going on, and that's fine. That's why we have different winners to look at. But I think it's really exciting. Were you surprised that you won or got selected or not?
I was pleased.
Good answer.
I thought I felt good about the work. I thought it was really strong, and yeah, I was happy. But I think there's some really cool AI work out there. I think there's some really boring AI work out there.
Yeah.
So I feel that this like is really strong in terms of just that weaving in of concept and technology and what's unique to the medium and what it can really be powerful for. So yeah, I was hopeful that it would do well, but I've submitted to so many of these kinds of things that like and gotten knows that I wouldn't have been surprised at all if
I tell students and other groups it's part of what we do. You can be the best at whatever, but if nobody sees it, I mean, you have to get your work out there. And early, I understand a lot of competitions and stuff, and you kind of get away from it after a while, but you got to get the work out there, and that's of course harder than ever in some ways now because so many other people are, but then again, there's a lot more avenues to do that. So I would encourage anybody to enter similar things. I mean, this is literally the first one that I'm aware of for a magazine and about AI art having a competition. Try to imagine where it's going to be in 10 years or 5 years or probably a year or maybe some months. But I was just happy to see something unexpected and something personal. And so there's a lot of different directions. And if you get the magazine, or I guess some of it's on the site, you see the wide range of stuff that we got submitted, and it gets noticed and reproduced in the magazine. And it's exciting times for design and art. And so I was pleasant. I don't want to say surprised. I didn't really know what to expect, but and of course, any competition like that, there are some things you would expect. Okay, well, that's that thing I've kind of seen a lot. And I'm just drawn to the ones that I kind of do a double take in, and this was certainly that. And then reading the description and how it came about, it's like, well, geez, this for me is definitely one of the top ones. So
no, I think that especially is where I'm pleasantly surprised and grateful to be selected. Is that like this work is at its most compelling, like the more you learn about it, I think. So I don't expect, a jury member with only like a small amount of time to pass over these, 400 or plus submissions to be able to engage with it. So the fact that it caught your eye, and I'm really appreciative of, and glad to be in the magazine, and excited to see the other winners. I haven't gotten to see them yet. I think I saw that Emi Kusano's in there, maybe.
Emi Kusano did the cover, so she contributed the cover for the magazine. I have it here, so I think it's very nice.
I'm excited to flip through it.
Yeah, I know, but I really need to say thank you so much also to David and every other jury member. I think this was quite a lot of submissions that you had to scan, and a lot of
there was.
lot of effort to read all these descriptions, but I think it was worth. And there was such a broad range. You captured this beautifully in your essay, David, about like all the other submissions that have been there, and that is kind of a shame that we cannot print 400 works in a.
Oh, I hated to have to narrow it down. I mean, there's so much good work that didn't get in, and it could have, different set of judges. Some of it would have and wouldn't have, but I think it's a real good representation especially for a first time event. And yeah, I was happy to be a small part of it. So great work, Kevin.
Thank you so
Well,
much.
yeah,
So I would really
again,
like to
I
give
appreciate it.
the community a little chance to drop a message or a question if you have any. And in the meantime, I have one last question to both of you, because I think it's super exciting that we have people from around the world now that you're living both in the United States. It would be interesting to hear a bit what is your perception on AI in arts. Like, is there a growing community? How are people reacting to it? So I had this discussion with Esherick from Tokyo, and she talked a bit about religion and people in Asia having a complete different relationship to machines and to AI than we have in Europe, where people are a bit more on the concern side sometimes. So I would be super interested, like how is the perception in in the US, and David, you're traveling way beyond the US, so you maybe have a broader view on other countries as well.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear your take, David.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's kind of all over the map. There is a lot of suspicion and kind of what's the word? Not fully embracing the idea, and there's definitely people going to lose some work because of it. I was just in Brazil, and I got a little more feeling of kind of anti. A little bit maybe this one event, but I think in America it's for me it seems kind of mixed, that you have the people that just want to blanketly say no, it's horrible, and then others that want to say it's all great, and of course it's somewhere in the middle. And for me personally, I wish I was more knowledgeable about some of the actual software and things. It seems like a really nice tool, and that's part of the debate too. Is it just a tool? What's real, and all that? And so when Kevin mentioned doing the realistic version and something not being quite off, I still think when I see people and some other things produced by AI, you kind of go, oh, I bet that's AI, and then you're almost always right. And that's, I think, what about his piece, that I didn't get that. I wouldn't have necessarily thought that if I'd just seen it on its own. And but that being said, there's some amazing detailed work you'll see in the results, and just like, wow, who imagined that? Where did that come from? And so we really got the spectrum, and I just wanted to be sure and put in a word for what to me is very personal, not expected work. So I guess I've said that a few times now, but so I think it's mixed. What do you find, Kevin?
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's some pretty intensely vitriolic discourse around it. A lot of people being like, if you're using AI, that's not art. Like, there's no such thing as an AI artist, blah, blah, blah. I think generally that's just kind of like a misunderstanding of the concept, or the historical trajectory of what we have considered to be art, and that art resides so much in like the intentionality behind it, and that people will come to see this as art with time. I think also partially it's just like a lot of people not understanding that, like, I'm not just here like typing in a few words and clicking a button being like, oh, it looks good, and like send that to the magazine. Like there's this very rich creative and critical process that goes into all of this, and just because it doesn't involve paint, like, doesn't stop it from being art. Like, Um, uh, Photography is pretty well established as a real fine art, and I don't really hear people today saying, "Oh, they're just holding the thing and clicking the button, calling that art." You know, like there's this understanding that it takes something to frame something, you know, to frame the shot and uh, create the circumstances and the presentation such that like you can credibly call what you've created an art object. Um, and I think as people learn more about the processes that are going into some of this AI art, they'll gain a stronger appreciation of that. I think that's partially on the artists to do a good job of making art that has a rich process behind it and then communicating that process to an extent that will captivate, but hopefully not bore people learning about it. And yeah, so I understand some of the skepticism, and it's also like frightening for a lot of people who've spent years and years developing manual craft or your Photoshop craft or whatever it is, to get good at what they do in terms of image making. And I sympathize with that, and some of my work has to do with that, about the ways that it's going to like strip away former sources of meaning for us, and how we'll need to find new places for that. On my part, I see personally like a lot of optimism around AI art because I mostly hang out with other people who are in
Excited about it. Yeah.
like my artist friends here in New York are all like people who are of the crypto art world and are largely like generative artists or artists working with AI. And so I tend to, on a day-to-day basis, not confront like too much skepticism around it. And most people, to them, it's just like obvious that like this is art and this is the
No,
future.
but
And
yeah,
yeah,
that's good. That's good to hear. So there's a positive bubble, at least like a positive community.
yeah.
We have one question from the community to David, and I think before we close, I would really like to pass this. So Viewfinder is asking, David, you faced criticism from traditional creatives for not having, like, for not being one of them or something like that. At least at the beginning, I guess, a long time ago. So, do
Sounds
you
like
see any
practice.
parallels with today? Criticism and skepticism towards those working with AI artwork? Can you see any parallels that saying like this is not how we did it 10 years ago, so it's not the real thing?
Well, it's so different.
Yeah.
You know, my work was never. I mean, I can't remember hearing it's not the real thing, but about everything else. And of course, there's something about the shock of the new. And you know, I did a book called The End of Print, and that was kind of semi tongue in cheek, but saying that, you know, well, we've done everything we can in print, and it's time to move on to a different medium. And I mean, print has had a little bit of a comeback, but so I think that's really interesting. I had this writer, William Burroughs, did I worked with a documentary about the end of print, and he first said he wouldn't do it because he didn't believe it was the end of print. And I said, that's fine, just say whatever you think of it. But he has this great quote where he says, he's got this great voice, but he says, I remember an exhibition called Photography, the End of Painting. And he goes, it wasn't at all. So that was kind of the way he was looking at kind of new media and things. Or, you know, people say, oh, no, that's it. You know, and you can imagine when they, you know, first perfected photography, people said, that's it. You just ruined painting. Nobody's going to paint anymore. They're just going to take these photographs. And of course,
Yeah.
so.
But to your point, it was the end of painting as we knew it.
Right. Yeah. No. Well, no, not at all. That was like he said. It wasn't at all. I mean,
But it
so
totally changed like what painting would become.
yeah, it
Like the
wasn't.
invention of photography like unlocked modern painting.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, but just the idea, you can imagine people saying, you know, because painting so much was just realistic at that point because they had no other way to record things, and so. Yeah, I'm just more curious. I'd like to know more. I mean, I start my essay in the magazine about kind of questioning that. If somebody puts in a command and pushes a button, does that make them an artist? And I guess I tend to think not necessarily, but with the other ingredients that you've talked about and mentioned, I think it certainly is going in that direction. Yeah. So, and ultimately, any kind of artist or design, it comes down to your eye, and regardless of the software, and whether you decide that's working for whatever reasons, or maybe you take one of the 100,000 ideas and you enlarge it or blow it up or crop it or something that the next person wouldn't have done. So you don't necessarily just accept it as it's given you. You really bring yourself into it, and I think the more you can do that, the more it does become art. But
100%.
yeah, I went through the same thing with, is it graphic design or is it art? And people would say, no, fine art is supposed to communicate. And no, I'm sorry, they would say graphic design is supposed to communicate. It's not fine art. And I would think, so you're saying fine art doesn't communicate? Or
Yeah, I'd like a
there's
word about that.
some combination. But yeah. Oh,
No. I just meant with them, not with you.
Yeah.
Not with the audience. Whoever's saying that, I'd be interested.
Yeah, it's early, and I think in the whole history of the medium and what's going on, and that's why it's fun to be involved in this early first, as far as I know, competition of its kind. So yeah, I'm just more curious. I would like to play with it more. I'm not worried about it. I haven't seen anything that, at least type driven or heavy typography, that I think has been done better than a talented human would have done in terms of type design, not fonts, actual type heavy work. People send me a fair amount, and I haven't seen one where I went, oh no, they've nailed it. You think, well, that's curious. And the people that kind of didn't get the early work from the 90s, or kind of, there'll be the group and say, oh, cool, yeah, oh, great. but it won't be at that level. So that's just my own personal observation. I haven't seen it yet where I think, oh no, they really figured out this heavy graphic design type heavy work. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, bye.
Yeah, I think that's a great closing. I think we're coming to an end. And one last sentence, David. I'm super happy that you still have this same positive message. That I mean, when we talked 2 years ago in Off Barcelona, you said something like, AI is not the end of graphic designers, and the top designers won't go away. And I think from what I hear now, this is still your belief. So also happy to hear that. So
yeah,
thank you.
It's not going away.
No.
Might change shape a little bit, but it's
exactly.
Those who do it best will harness the tools.
And we're hearing more and more about like really good social uses and things that are actually really benefiting people, and that I think is really exciting too. And
So thank you both so much for joining this. I think this was a really great discussion. We've been running a bit over time, but I think it's fine. And thank you so much for this great talk, and for your contribution, both with the essay and the judging, and with contributing your work. And have a nice day.
Okay. And thanks, Kevin, for sharing what was behind your piece.
Thank you for
really important.
I appreciate you spotting it, and having me on here. And if you would like to familiarize yourself with any of those tools, I'd be happy to forward along resources to you.
Oh, okay, great.
Learn the waters a little bit.
Careful what you wish for, but I would like to be able to play a little more in it than I am now. So
cool.
Good.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You guys, take care.